On Sunday, at the Charlie Kirk Memorial, our chronic infection with British foreign policy diseases began to be cured. Our founder's vision of the United States was revived. Contrary to the British agent Henry Kissinger, we were again a sovereign nation living and building and creating according to God's laws, freeing ourselves from the empire's foreign wars. But you wouldn't know that from the media. The New York Times and others implied that the Kirk event weirdly joined religion with Donald Trump's America First, Worker First economic policies. They said this had never happened before at this scale. Here's the key quote. Perhaps never before at such a grand scale has such a fusion taken place in a public display. More than just a tribute to the style of Mr. Kirk's evangelical tradition, this service represented a pinnacle event, reflecting the degree to which conservative Christianity has melded with Republican politics in the Trump era. But prior to the most recent run of total control of our foreign policy by the British Foreign Office, we were always like this. All our founding documents and all our founders' foreign policies insisted we were guided by God in a continuous mission to find truth. We fled here to escape the forever wars of Europe's oligarchs. I'm Barbara Boyd, and I've been investigating and documenting the modern British financial empire's subversion of our country since 1973. Today, I'm going to first talk about this critical week in President Trump's quest for peace in Israel and Ukraine. Then I'm going to discuss the speech in which Henry Kissinger admitted that he was a British agent. Then I'm going to talk about the man Kissinger attacked in that speech without naming him. That was John Quincy Adams. It's Adams' America as peacemaker policy, which Donald Trump is now pursuing. But before I dig in, if you find our work helpful, please go to the Promethean Action website now and subscribe. President Trump goes to the opening of the UN on Tuesday. He seeks peace, particularly with respect to Gaza and the continuing slaughter there. He will meet on the sidelines with Arab leaders to find ways to free the hostages and end the bloodshed. According to reports, he's discussing with them a plan for the day after the war ends. It involves rebuilding Gaza and securing it without an Israeli occupation. He will meet on Thursday with President Erdogan of Turkey concerning both the Middle East and Ukraine. Last Friday, he spoke with President Xi of China about ending these wars and trade.
I had a great call with President Xi, and as you know, he approved the TikTok deal, and we're in the process. We have some great investors, some of the biggest in the world, American investors, great people, and we look forward to getting that deal closed.
Is it fully approved? The Chinese statements didn't necessarily
Well, I
indicate
think so. I mean, when you say fully approved, I don't know what that means. We have to get it signed. I guess there could be a formality. I found his word to be very good. President Xi and I had a long talk. We talked for almost 2 hours, and started at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I think it was a very good talk. We talked about trade. We talked about war. We talked about a lot of things. We talked about Russia, Ukraine, obviously, and Gaza. Talked about a lot of subjects. It was a long call.
Trump's efforts have been sabotaged by the leaders of France and the UK, who are loudly and obnoxiously calling for establishing a Palestinian state on land which amounts now to a bombed-out, explosive-filled rubble field. As of this broadcast, the UK has been joined by Canada and Australia. These empty European slogans provoked Netanyahu and his crazed settler allies, and that was their intent. He ranted that he will now annex the West Bank to prevent formation of a Palestinian state. He also declared Israel, founded as the homeland of Europe's dispossessed Jewish intellectuals, to be super Sparta. That, of course, refers to the fascist slave warfare state of ancient Greece, Sparta. Both the UK and France knew that this would be Israel's response. Marco Rubio told them exactly that before they did it. As in Ukraine, these two powers, the UK and France, continuously fight to keep the wars going and sabotage Trump's quest for peace. They publicly back Zelensky's refusal to engage in realistic peace negotiations. They keep escalating the war in an attempt to box Trump in and involve the U.S. directly. The last 2 weeks saw two major attempts in this game. The first involved unarmed Russian drones allegedly entering Polish territory. Amidst a huge media uproar, U.S. intelligence and President Trump said that was probably an accident. The second was the claim by Estonia that Russian jets entered their airspace. Russia denies that ever happened. But the UK, their agent Polish Prime Minister Tusk, Macron of France, and the Washington Post, of course, all say NATO shooting down Russian planes now directly is what is required. Now, concerning how we got into this forever wars mess and Henry Kissinger. A lot could be said about yesterday's celebration of Charlie Kirk's life and mission. If you didn't watch it, you should. Make the time to do so. The event itself will determine this administration's policies long into the future, including the midterms. But I was struck particularly by its implications for our forever war policies and our subservience to the British financial empire. In May of 1982, Henry Kissinger gave a speech at Chatham House, otherwise known as the Royal Institute of International Affairs in London. That speech tells you everything about how our country became the army for the modern British financial empire's wars. The speech starts with Kissinger making a stunning admission. He said, "In my White House incarnation, then as National Security Advisor, I kept the British Foreign Office better informed and more closely engaged than I did the American State Department. In my negotiations over Rhodesia, I worked from a British draft with British spelling, even when I did not grasp the distinction between a working paper and a cabinet-approved document." In this same speech, Kissinger attacked what he calls the American moralistic tradition in foreign policy. He praises the British Empire's view of human beings and nature as Hobbesian. He says that's the reality in this world. Thomas Hobbes, if you know him, was maybe the crown prince of British imperial philosophers. He rejected the idea that a loving God was present in our world. Instead, he said human societies were beastly. They were in constant war of each against all and required a monarch with absolute dictatorial authority to rule over them. Otherwise, there would be chaos. Hobbes played a big role in the British East India Company and British colonization and looting efforts, both as a shareholder of the East India Company itself and as chief British Empire propagandist. Kissinger, like Hobbes, argues that foreign policy must be amoral, even satanic, and must be based on what he calls the balance of power dynamics of empire. In plain English, that means setting its rivals up to war against one another and using religious and racial warfare to control its colonies. Kissinger admits that our founders firmly rejected and fled from these pagan doctrines, but he said this was a huge mistake. He notes that as late as 1949, our State Department was rejecting the idea of, quote, shifting the balance of power as a goal. It was instead still talking meekly about influencing the balance of principle. The result of Kissinger's British agentry is found in such documents as NSM 2000 in 1975. That satanic document committed us to limiting population growth in the developing sectors of the world by any means necessary. Both Kissinger and a man I call his evil twin, Zbigniew Brzezinski, were students of William Yandell Elliott at Harvard. Elliott was deployed here by the British Imperial Roundtable movement to recruit American agents to run U.S. foreign policy. The Roundtable's goal was to reabsorb the United States into the British Empire, and if that could not be done, to destroy us. These two men, Kissinger and Brzezinski, destroyed any idea of God or morality in our foreign policy. They completely wedded us to the methods of empire. That is, until Donald Trump came along. Now, some people still remembering the insane Iraq War and the more recent religious warfare in the Middle East might ask, how are Trump's Christian views of foreign policy different than George Bush and Dick Cheney? Well, let me tell you about the man Henry Kissinger attacked in that speech without naming him. That man was John Quincy Adams. But first, if you're finding this video presents you with new information and tickles your mind, please like and share the video. It helps our reach on YouTube. John Quincy Adams, the son of founding father John Adams and the intellectual son of Benjamin Franklin, played a pivotal role in defining the foreign policy of the young United States. His concept for that policy flowed directly from his belief that the United States of America was founded upon principles which were derived from the Christian religion, and that the United States should preserve and extend those principles without any compromise with imperial or colonial powers and without becoming an imperial power itself. Here's the most famous section of a speech he gave on July 4th, 1821. The United States does not go abroad in search of monsters to destroy. She is the well-wisher to the freedom and independence of all. She is the champion and vindicator only of her own. She will recommend the general cause by the countenance of her voice and the benign sympathy of her example. She well knows that by once enlisting under other banners than her own, were they even the banners of foreign independence, she would involve herself beyond the power of extrication in all the wars of interest and intrigue, of individual avarice, envy, and ambition, which assume the colors and usurp the standard of freedom. The fundamental maxims of her policy would insensibly change from liberty to force. She might become the dictatress of the world. She would no longer be the ruler of her own spirit. Adams' view of the intersection of religion and politics was absolutely present in Erica Trump's speech at her husband's memorial yesterday. Here's the key part.
Charlie passionately wanted to reach and save the lost boys of the West. The young men who feel like they have no direction, no purpose, no faith, and no reason to live. The men wasting their lives on distractions, and the men consumed with resentment, anger, and hate. Charlie wanted to help them. He wanted them to have a home with Turning Point USA. And when he went onto campus, he was looking to show them a better path and a better life that was right there for the taking. He wanted to show them that. My husband, Charlie, he wanted to save young men just like the one who took his life. That young man, on the cross, our Savior said, "Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do." That man, that young man, I forgive him.
So the forces of perpetual war, those who profit from chaos and division, are still at work, but the tide is very much turning. President Trump's efforts for peace, the growing awareness of our nation's true history, and the powerful message from the Charlie Kirk Memorial are all converging. We are at a critical juncture. Will we allow the ghosts of Kissinger, Brzezinski, Hobbes, and the new Jacobins of the Democratic Party and their media dictate our future? Or will we embrace the vision of our founders, a nation free, sovereign, and dedicated to the force of Christian love and peace? The answer, I believe, was powerfully articulated on Sunday. Now our work begins to implement it. Promethean Action is dedicated to telling the true American story, showing people that our founders created something totally unique in human history, a deliberately anti-imperial republic where the people, including the least of us, are educated and raised to rule. It's time to act. It's time to join in Charlie Kirk's mission to save our young and redeem our republic. Please go to the website now and contribute. Help us grow this movement. Thanks very much for listening. I'll see you again on Thursday.
Thanks for watching. Please take a moment and subscribe to our free newsletter at prometheanaction.com.